Hello and welcome to Finextra TV's Predict 2024 series. I'm Hannah Wallace, and kindly joining me in the studio today to discuss operational resilience is Sumant Kumar, CTO of Banking and Financial Markets at NTT Data UK and Ireland. Sumant, it's great to have you in the studio. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. Thanks. Nice to be here.
Really good to have you on. We're talking about operational resilience, and one of the big trends in this space is AI, and that's where I want to begin. How are you seeing AI-powered solutions boost operational resilience, particularly in 2024?
Yeah, sure. So I think obviously AI is a big topic in our space. In banking industry, there is a lot of traction. Within operational resilience, I would sort of say three key domains where from our perspective, we are seeing a lot of adoption and interest from the banks. One is cyber. Obviously, operational resilience, given the current geopolitical scenario, we are seeing a lot of focus from the regulators and the banks on cyber. So AI is playing a big role in using its sort of predictive nature, the ability to predict threats in advance, and the ability to connect dots is quite important. So we are seeing a lot of adoption there. Fraud being part of that, because fraud, financial crime becomes under the remit of and is often connected to cyber. Yeah. Second is in the predictive nature for running operations more efficiently. So what we call as AI ops. So using AI to predict when the systems are about to go down, or as the problems start to emerge, then notifying and predicting to the operational teams of where some of those problems might be, and then preventing those. So that's the second space. And then the third space is around modernization. Obviously, banks have a huge problem of legacy infrastructure. And what we are seeing is the application of generative AI in using to deploy and convert legacy code into modern code. So at NTT, we have a thing called entity coding, where we can use generative AI to basically look at legacy code, could be mainframe or whatever, and then sort of convert it into modern code. And we are seeing some positive results from it. So probably these three areas, I would say.
And that's a really exciting space, isn't it?
Yeah.
Generative AI. Maybe one for another time, but it leads me quite nicely into my next question, which is what should be front of mind then for the banks as they consider operational resilience frameworks going into the year ahead. So what's your advice there?
I mean, front of mind for banks, I would say keep an eye on the upcoming regulation. There is an ongoing sort of focus from the regulators on operational resilience. There is a new DORA regulation coming from the EU with a deadline of Jan 2025. So I think keeping an eye out for the regulation. Also sort of understanding what the key critical systems are, because there is a lot of focus from the regulator on keeping the critical systems and services up and running for the markets that can have a big impact on the market and the consumers. So things like payments, right? I mean, a lot of times we have seen payment systems going down when we are trying to pay something for goods and services, and suddenly the payments stop working. So identifying those critical services and making sure that the supply chain and then the infrastructure for those services is intact and modern and resilient. The second piece we are seeing is probably would say is supply chain risk management. So there is a lot of focus from the regulators on looking at third-party risk, because technology itself has a long supply chain, and often banks buy software services from different providers, people like us in a lot of cases, and there is a lot of focus from the regulators to look at the supply chain risks that are embedded within the supply chain. And the third thing, I would sort of say, operational resilience is as good as people, so it's linked to your organizational resilience. So a lot of focus, often we talk about technology and regulation and risk management, but I think we should also, probably banks should also consider the impact of culture and what organization, how much organizational resilience is embedded within the financial institution. So training, awareness of the activities that the employees are doing, because a lot of the times the threat is external but also internal. So I think that's important to keep in mind, and the cultural element of allowing employees to speak up.
Fantastic. Well, you've touched on regulation being one of the big trends, so I'm interested to hear how the regulatory landscape and all the change we're seeing across it is having an impact on financial firms. And we'll end on how you think banks should prepare then.
Yeah. So I think in terms of the impact, of changing regulation, there is a lot of focus on the banks. So it's taking a lot of resources from the banks. So ideally, probably organizations want to focus on revenue and efficiencies, but there is a lot of focus on resilience, which is then sort of feeds into the operational risk, non-financial risk of how banks measure overall, look at risk management as a discipline. So that is taking a lot of capacity from the banks by looking at operational resilience. I think one of the key things, when we talk to clients, we are seeing is now the banks are looking to consider the risk management aspect with the modernization angle. So they understand that the modernization of obsolete infrastructure and systems is important, not only for operational resilience, but it's also key to improve customer experience. They're sort of interlinked in a lot of ways, right? But historically, people have just looked at it as a regulatory thing, or not as a customer experience item. But now people are trying to sort of understand that actually these things are more interlinked than they used to be. So there is a lot of focus on using operational resilience, but linking it to customer experience and making sure customers get the service that they should.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your predictions in that space. Weaved in there some very good advice and also some big trends I'm hoping to discuss with you maybe further down the line. But for now, Sumant, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for sharing your predictions, and speak to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.